Hey, mate.
Hi, mate.
Thank you for doing this.
Oh, no, that's so fine. Why does this record exist?
It's a good question. I don't really have a choice in the matter.
Uh-huh.
I wake up and I think I've got to make music.
Yep.
Even if I don't necessarily make music that day, my existence is kind of dependent on practicing music or practicing art. And the reason this album exists is I wanted it to. I like albums. I listen to albums a lot. And I wanted to have an album that I could listen to or that anyone could listen to.
Did you have an intention? Did you set an intention for this record? Like a set of rules?
Yeah, it was sort of. I finished recording and releasing an album called Middle Everything in 2020. And even before that was released, I was itching to do another one. And I felt like I learned a lot doing that first one. And I wanted to just show that I could do it a bit better the second time around. And I think that was part of it as well, was like I wanted a record, literal record, and also a document of myself getting better and not being fully formed straight out the gate. I think I spent a lot of years trying to be fully formed, and the shift in the idea that like this is a process and this is a lifetime, that I'm just pushing a little bit or trying to get better or trying to execute my vision a bit better each time.
What informed that shift?
I think just the things I was listening to. I think seeing a lot of people get success around me, and then sort of noticing that the differences were very fickle and minute. Like I kind of got the sense that like people that were doing heaps well around me, there was like 2 or 3 decisions made, or 2 or 3 people enjoyed it, what they were doing, and they were kind of in this next other level. And there were moments of like, man, I just need those 3 or 4 little things to do it. But at the same time, there was a sense of like, well, they're kind of, what we're both doing is essentially the same thing. And that feeling didn't change for them, regardless of how many people were into it or how many, industry goals they were kicking or whatever. The feeling was still the like, I'm somewhat struggling. I'm just trying to get my point across. Yeah, that kind of, the focus kind of shifted just when I started to sort of notice and realize that there's more similarities between, me and someone that's much more successful than me than I initially thought there was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. It's a good question. Again, well done.
Thank you.
No worries. This is I find it very uncomfortable to not be like, I need to interview you now.
Yeah, for sure. To ask the question back.
Yeah, how's your record going?
Yeah, just fine.
Good. Great.
It strikes me as a record of beginnings and endings. And like beginnings and endings of identity. Is that something that you agree with?
Yeah, I mean, it is for sure. It's definitely documenting. I mean, it's interesting we're talking about shifts in perspective, because it is documenting that as well. Maybe more on a personal level than like a creative careerist sort of level. It was more documenting the change that happened just personally in my life from about 2017 to about 2020, 2021 and after. Being able to, I think just being able to put more things into perspective and just opening myself up to relationships and try to be as open in my communication as I can be, and also being aware of where those sort of gaps are and what those gaps could lead to, and also just trying to be kind towards them. If there's a lapse in communication that causes a conflict, it's like, that's not the end of the world. That's sort of like what is happening regardless. And I guess in this record, I'm kind of in some ways just like grappling with the idea of letting go of all of those things, or like holding on to what I can hold on to, but yeah, like just trying to mitigate my levels of control over it, or just being aware that I want to control it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are the special words for me, the control and the conflict words with this record.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe we go here now. Like,
Yeah.
what's your relationship like with conflict?
I'm very opinionated and very non-confrontational.
Yeah.
I like the idea of having like a formed opinion about something some of the time, but I would really hate if what I was thinking or feeling made someone else feel bad. And I think,
Okay.
yeah,
That's complex.
yeah, and that's a conflict in itself.
Yeah.
I really like. I'm not really the kind of person to like go into battle for myself. Really, I probably, be more in the it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
I would rather this not be a fight. And I was wrong with that, like when I like at work and stuff as well, where it's like,
Yeah.
I can kind of envision how the conversation is going to end, or how I've imagined it will end, and I don't want to put the energy into that into the potential fight that might happen. I think like communication and conversations and stuff at work was a lot of where the conflict sort of comes through.
Yeah.
And it's also just like interpersonally outside of that, it's like I guess it's like a low self-image or a low self-opinion or whatever, where I'm like, I'm not worth the fight. I'm not worth this fight that we could potentially have.
Okay.
Which is totally imagined as well, because it's like, things don't really work. It's more, most people are like, oh, you've got an opinion, I've got an opinion as well. That's pretty fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think to answer the question, like, that's where conflict sits for me. It's a really complicated space that I think about a lot, and I give a lot of energy to, and it kind of messes my day up.
It's funny, like, it feels like you're exploring this thing of like, you're doing the math of the conflict and then choosing, well, not to pursue it because you have found what you think the outcome is going to be.
Yeah.
I relate to that.
Yeah.
But I also feel like this record, if I'm to associate it with any of if we think about the ways that we might like neurologically respond to conflict in fight and flight and freeze. Does this firstly fuck, marry, kill, fight, flight, freeze? But this feels like a fight record.
Yeah, it's a bit of a fight. Is it a bit of a swinging attempt at doing something?
What are you trying to do?
I'm not too sure.
Right.
Just trying to do something. And I think that's been a bit of my artistic vision through the whole thing, of just like doing stuff is good.
Yeah.
Doing art is good. Because there's been like a lot of logical reasons why I shouldn't do it.
Do music.
Do music, do art.
Yeah, but that's not how you're wired.
Yeah, that's not how I'm wired. So I'm actively pursuing the doing of it.
Right.
And I think that's part of where the record sits for me. Part of where it kind of lands, I guess.
So the fight is in the creation.
Yeah.
Choosing to pursue it.
It
also feels like you're standing up for yourself a bit on this record.
Yes, I would say that's pretty true. And just I've spent a lot of my life and a lot of my creative life trying to impress people.
Yeah.
Trying to get the pat on the head. Job well done, you've done well. And this record I still wanted that, but I really wanted that to come from an intrinsic metric of success of like, I pursued a thing and it completed, and the absolute is it's there. I guess that's it. It's not really about whether you like the record or not. Right. It's more about the like, it exists, and I had the choice to make it or not, and I decided to do that. And I think it's kind of like if you go to an art gallery with someone who doesn't enjoy art and they look at the art and go, oh, my 5-year-old could have done that. Yeah. I hear that and I think like, yeah, but they didn't. Or they go, I could do that. So it's like, yeah, well, you're actually allowed to. You can do it, and it might be awesome and people might love it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess that if it is standing up for myself, it's standing up for the pursuit of doing stuff for their own sake and bringing stuff into the world. Which is complicated as well because there's a lot of stuff in the world as well. And I think my managing of my expectations, the human part of me that's kind of like, I deserve some sort of medal for choosing to put something out into the world. I want some recognition for that. But that's not really the point of it. It's just like when I'm feeling.
It's not.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, who are you writing for when you're writing these songs?
Yeah, no, really just writing for me, really.
Right.
Or people who like the stuff that I like.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's really the audience that I have in mind.
I think about it as like me and my friends.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I feel that in your writing. And so the conflict for me exists in this idea of like writing for yourself and like trying to balance that expectation, like you say, of recognition or something bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a funny one because like my human ego is still there.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And like I still, I still have desire for whatever that thing is. But I guess that's part of the conflict as well, right?
Yeah.
Is like the conflict is like I want to do something just on its own merit and have it brought into the world, and then I'm conflicted with like, oh, but I want it to mean something to somebody.
Yeah.
Or I'm trying to connect with another person or whatever it is.
Yeah. You write to explain for yourself and to synthesize for yourself. But you also hope that thing has special relevance to someone
else, and that's kind of a bit of the point of doing it for me as well.
Yeah,
it's like I'm just wanting to connect with people that I guess like the growth between that first record and this record was just like I'm more confident in putting myself forward.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good way to sort of manage those conflicting thoughts or feelings of like, if you just bring yourself to it, then that's, kind of, that's all you can really do.
Yeah.
And that's sort of a way. And I think, I don't know, like to put words in your mouth, but the...
No, go on. Yum.
As Max Quinn, I kind of think like... I think there's a bit of a sense of awareness on the record as well. I think it's a very... it's aware of itself.
Say more about that. What does that mean?
I just kind of feel like the situations that are being explained are very much from a place of like, just being aware of what's going on. And that's when I was like writing it, like I put a lot of effort into just really being aware of what the feelings were that I was feeling, or being aware, like even if the words came out quickly, even like a stream of consciousness type thing, just being aware of the feeling that was inside of me or the feeling of the environment I was in or whatever. And I felt like if I was feeling that awareness, those words kind of aligned with what I was feeling, almost in ways that were kind of hard to explain, or like probably even weren't even well articulated in the actual text. And I think that was the same with like the choice of like instrumentation and the choice of the vibe that's kind of set up throughout it. Is like I want it to feel a little bit like it's not perfect, but there's like an awareness that kind of makes it perfect as well.
Tell me about the colors you chose to paint there.
Yeah, like I wanted it to feel lived in. I wanted it to feel like it had a life. I think the big thing was listening to the Avalanches. I think to Since I Left You, particularly that song, but the whole album as well. What I love about that song and that album and those artists is that it feels like they've constructed a world and you are simply just viewing it. And they invited you in, but it's going to exist without you there. And it's very fully formed. Like for Since I Left You, for example, like there's like a 10-hour loop of that song. Like you can just walk in and out and be totally immersed in it. I think immersion was like the other thing that I was kind of interested in. So, like the colors I'm painting with, like, it really had to feel, like faded or lived in, or like it would exist without you constructing it or whatever. And that's, so like colors were it's part of it, but I think it was more about texture for me.
Sure.
Yeah, it was like, I guess it kind of feeds into the theme park ride part of it. That immersion of like, or the wrestling part of it, or whatever, that this suspension of disbelief of like you're in a new environment where the rules of it only really apply to that. And when you decide to be immersed in it, you are totally there. But what is interesting is that knife's edge of like, if I turn my head slightly to the left or the right, the illusion is shattered and I'm in my own real world again. And I really love that space in between those two worlds of like, this is real life, this is what we're doing, and this is my, vision that I've created, or this world I've created.
Yeah.
And I really wanted the album to have its own world, but also wanted to be a bit of that bridging gap between your normal day and, this sort of constructed
place you can go.
A place you can go. Yeah. And I think that's part of that awareness thing as well. It's like, it's not, it's aware that it's in these two worlds.
You said two words that are gonna feel confusing, I think, to people who listen to the record.
Yeah.
And those are wrestling and theme parks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
can we start with Defunctland? What is that?
Okay, so Defunctland is a YouTube channel. And it is a documentary series where a person has made these really in-depth videos about rides that have been decommissioned or defunct. And it's very good and it's very interesting. And during lockdown, which is where a lot of the record was made, I found a lot of comfort in just watching it and learning about this sort of stuff. Yeah.
What was comforting about it?
I guess I've always been interested in this sort of days gone by, nostalgia, probably like bits of my childhood that were kind of lost, or bit times where like as I was a kid and, something big had happened or whatever, what was the soundtrack to that? Or what was the film I was watching? Or what were the clothes and the fashion like? Yeah, and it's like I've always thought of those things kind of being part of the thing that shapes the environment that you're in as well, especially as a child. The stimulus of the TV or the clothes that are around you or the music you're listening to. I've always paid really close attention to that. And part of my getting older is being able to, use those things to sort of travel back to that time when I was a kid where, safety was cool. Like I was there and doing it. But, I guess, Defunct. If we talk about Defunctland still, sorry.
Let's keep talking about it.
Yeah, I think I've always just been interested in that. And I've always just been interested in the grain of a VHS film or something. Like I wrote an EP about films that I watch on VHS.
Yeah.
I love that. Something about it just really, I'm interested. I'm attached to those textures.
Like the flickering of memory.
It's flickering of memory, yeah. And kind of does, and for me, that's like even the smell of the video shop. Like there's a sensory thing to it.
Yeah.
And it's very hard. It's very hard to bring it into the dynamic present.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of people try, and I guess I'm attempting it as well. I'm trying as well, but it's such a particular thing that you only really know when you've gotten it right. Like or if you're consuming it, when the person who's put it together has done it right. Like I've even seen things that like people rate as like, oh, this is such a good depiction of 90s culture or something, and it, my critic hat just gets put on straight away. And it's like, oh, no, it's not really like that.
Because this is you having your opinions.
This might be my conflicting opinion.
Yeah.
I just really loved that. And it kind of fed into just my love of the movies that I watched or the things that I watched as a kid to make me not feel like I was completely alone. Mm-hmm. I think that's what it comes down to, really.
And how does that manifest in the record?
I think in like a very practical sense, like the sound, there's a sound of an orchestra throughout it, but it's not an orchestra that I've recorded. It's from a guitar pedal called the Mel 9 pedal, or I bought it off Beck Sandridge.
Yeah, right.
Who's a good person and a cool artist as well. And it estimates the sound of the orchestra or the mellotron, but it's kind of crappy as well. It's like the perfect amount of crap.
Yeah.
And having that as a guitar pedal, one, it provided this sort of washy feeling, but it kind of for me, transported all the songs to this place. For me, it was like a really great, like, if I'm talking about how hard it is to set up that world,
Yeah.
it was really like a key to unlock that for me.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was playing with it, all of the songs kind of had that feeling of it.
Yeah.
The sound was really evocative of that. And it happened because like I wanted a string section on the record.
Yeah.
Because I was listening to a lot of different stuff. But I was really interested in like Disney scores. And film scores generally, and also Punisher, the Phoebe Bridgers record.
Yeah.
And the use of strings on that.
Yeah.
But I just wanted it to sound a bit more trash.
Yeah.
And that's sort of where that came from. So that's part of the way it manifests on there. Yeah, everything just sounds a little bit, it's been recorded really beautifully and captured really well, but there's throughout all of it there's a bit of like, I don't know,
sort of
warped. Yeah, or if you get like gesso and on sand and you mix it with your paint to make your canvas a little bit more textured.
Yeah, sure.
That's kind of what the idea was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Practically, when we think about subject matter, are we also incorporating theme parks and
yeah? Well, it's kind of, this is a thing I was I've always been listening to a lot of Mountain Goats.
Yes.
And I'm a very big John Daniel fan.
Me too.
Yeah, he's very good. And he, in one of the interviews, I spent like hours listening to interviews of him. Like I've gone deep into his stuff. And there was one of the things he was talking about, where he's explaining that you are your dreams. So,
Cool.
yeah. So when you describe your dream to someone, it's like, you were there and you were doing this crazy thing.
Yeah.
All of those characters are actually just you, because it's coming out of your,
Okay.
yeah. And he was using that analogy for describing Tunnel of Love by Bruce Springsteen.
Yeah, right, all right.
And he was kind of like, there's a bit of a thing where it's like, whatever you write or whatever you do is still you. And sometimes I found when I'm trying to be honest and authentic and completely me, and I'm just trying to write the truth, I end up perverting it in a little way that's like, I'm being that Springsteen. I'm being the like, ripping my heart out of doing that, which is kind of a character as well.
Sure.
So I tried to tell the truth and tried to be honest. By just kind of, using these things as inspiration. And I found that when I did use them as inspiration and the truth was just there, it was kind of more of a conduit for my actual truth rather than sitting down being like, I've got to be truthful right now. It was more using like the way that I think in the only way that art and music and stuff does, it kind of brings yourself out. So I actually actively tried to write what was happening on the ride or what the story of the ride was. And then I found myself being like, oh, that's how I also feel about doing the work. Yeah. Or that's how I felt about having this conversation. Or, and it's not, there's a couple of songs where I was able to kind of just say what was happening. Yeah. Just in my life. But definitely having the theme park rides be a bit of a conduit for where the truth was actually lying and not the constructed version of an honest, truthful artist doing their best to tell the truth as an artist or whatever. Yeah. Yeah.
Have you interrogated that within yourself at all in terms of this being a record that is both about like conflict and getting better in your practice of art and trying to make it and do it, and also being a bit about like broken mechanical joyrides?
Yeah, well, it's just a little bit.
What does that mean?
I think like I don't really know how to say other than just like the you say the truth subconsciously, right?
Okay, John Daniel.
Right. Like when you're feeling comfortable and you're relaxed, your actual truth can come out. Whereas I feel sometimes if you're in an environment or you're in a situation where it's paramount that you are telling the truth, your ego constructs what it should be.
Sure.
You know? And whereas if I kind of removed that element of trying to construct what the truth would be and put all the energy into literally being like, no, Jaws is attacking me right now. Yeah. It's like, oh, that's what I'm actually feeling right now. It's kind of, getting myself out of the way, getting my ego out of the way of what I'm actually trying to say. And I don't know whether it's landed or not, but certainly the feeling of how I feel and what I'm trying to express really came out in the lyrics.
Then I would posit that it has landed.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I mean, and also I just love the idea of like someone listening to it being like, oh, he's feeling some stuff, and then someone else being like, oh no, but it's about Draws the Ride, or
Yeah,
or
right.
about,
Okay.
yeah, I kind of like that.
Do you want to talk about wrestling?
Yeah.
How did that find its way onto the record?
Well, yeah, it was part of the the tapestry that was things that I enjoyed as a kid, and one of the things that really made me feel like I wasn't alone. I love wrestling. I just think it's cool. I think it's an art form that doesn't get anywhere near the respect it deserves. And obviously there's another sector of that, which is like, it gets way too much respect than what it deserves. I like that it sits in that in-between place. I just love that idea that when it's really good, you really are questioning, is this real or is this fake? I love that. I love when the story is just, it doesn't matter if it's real or fake. And it's just like, I really want to see, these two people feel this much about each other that they've got to sort it out.
Yeah, sure.
And I think it feeds into that idea of conflict as well, or not being confrontational. It's just like, no, this is a safe place where you can, act out these conflicts, kind of like going to the theater or something, or watching art.
Yeah.
I just love that. And also just the physicality of it. It's just amazing to see the athleticism in these performers.
The parallels are not lost on me when it comes to the record that you've made, now that you've explained it.
Yeah, great.
I always have sort of thought of like, how does this fit in an abstraction?
Yeah.
But I wonder if it is that, like, in the same way, this is a world that you can go to.
Yeah. Yeah, it has its own rules.
Yeah.
And it's really been constructed for someone to view and someone to be kind of immerse themselves in. And there's a bit, it's like anything, like, when you go and watch The Terminator, that it's not really a robot from the future coming to.
What do you mean?
No, see?
Yeah.
I kind of liken it to, going to the art gallery or whatever. It's just like someone's put effort into constructing this thing, and it's, trying to reach out and connect with you.
Yep.
And when it's done successfully and you feel like you're connected to it, it's really great, or a great record, or whatever. Yeah.
I can imagine that this record also came with some growing pains. What were they?
Same thing. Conflict, communication. Communication is probably the big one.
Yeah.
When we're talking about conflict, or we're talking about things that feel uneasy, I guess what I'm really trying to say is it's better to communicate than to not communicate. From the very beginning, I sat in a room for 2 weeks and wrote 88 songs. And part of the growing pain was like, I want to treat this as if it's my job.
Yep.
And I set the goal of like, I'm going to write 80 songs. And there was a bit of growth in the idea of like, I have to be okay with a lot of this material not being good.
Yeah.
And that was a bit of growth, because I would often stop myself from doing stuff because it was like, oh, it's not perfect.
Yeah.
So I removed that, and that was a bit of a growth. And it wasn't really a pain. It was just kind of, a lot of this material is not being used.
Yeah.
And it was actually great. It was awesome.
But so from more than 80 songs, did any of them make the record?
All of the ones on the record are from, more or less, from those 80 songs.
No way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And right. A bit of growth pain was I chose these songs. I didn't even choose what the best ones were. I wasn't interested in the quality of writing of these songs.
Yeah.
I was interested in narratives. I was interested in going on a journey with a record, like trying to make a movie or whatever.
Right.
Yeah. So I picked the songs that best fit a narrative or a story.
Yeah.
And I wrote that little story out for myself, and it's like my own little coming of age film of having relationships end and new ones start, finding yourself in certain places, and the conflicts and resolutions that happen along the way. So that was the second part of that. And then the third part was like, I wanted it to have like an immersive feeling. And this is before I clocked into the theme park ride stuff. I wanted it to feel like something.
Yeah.
And yeah, from the Avalanches reference, there was a gang of other songs that kind of came through where I was really interested in this vibe that was kind of created through this, whether it was like Groove Armada or Flaming Lips or Talking Heads, MF Doom, lots of stuff. I've got the playlist, I can link you to it. It's pretty good. But yeah, one of the growing pains was when I was communicating to my producer, Jono, who has produced a lot of stuff and all of my stuff and is one of the like most musical brains in the country and a really good producer. I wasn't able to articulate that what I was trying to do to him.
Yep.
So he was really working hard on trying to guess what I was kind of thinking and like trying to put it together using the references I had.
Yeah.
And I was still kind of sitting there being like, it's not really what I want and not really vibing. And that would be, can you imagine like, and we're in lockdown at this point as well. This is between, he would travel from Melbourne to my house in Marrickville.
Yep.
For like 3 days to record something there and then have to literally go back.
Yep.
Because it's like, the borders are closing, I've got to go now.
Yep.
So he was already doing that. And also just managing going through lockdown and COVID and stuff. To also have the person coming up to me being like, you're putting a lot of effort in, but I'm not really vibing.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, not really. This isn't really what I want. And we had to have a not a stern conversation, but he really was just like, I can only do what you want.
Yeah.
And if you're not telling me what you want, it's extremely hard to do that.
Yeah. Like, it's funny, like I think about this in terms of high school or university or whatever. So much of it is about figuring out what you don't want.
Yeah.
How did you make the shift?
Yeah.
To being able to, like, even if you knew it internally,
yeah,
how were you finally able to articulate it?
Through collaboration.
Yeah.
Collaborating with Marcus Tamp, who's the drummer in my band and has been my friend for a lot of years, and we played in lots of bands together. When he added percussion and drums to the songs I was writing, the songs started to exist. This is an issue with solo artists, an issue that I've had forever, is when I go into a studio to produce a song, the song only exists on like an acoustic guitar or an estimation, and we have the joy of like building something completely new from the ground up.
Yeah.
But that can be complicated if you're not able to articulate what you want.
Yeah.
And it also takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
Takes a lot of energy. And if you're doing like a batch of songs, like you're doing an album, it's almost impossible. Like it just doesn't really work. So having the songs actually exist, like those drums really grounded what I was doing. That was a bit of the key that got unlocked. So the songs could exist. We could lay the guitars and drums down and the vocal and it could change or whatever. Then we could start playing with the textures. I think one of the issues with me was I was really thinking texturally first.
Yeah.
And really, and as I said before, like that's what I was really trying to set up a vibe and communicate a world and stuff like that. And it's like the songs don't exist yet.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of that collaboration with Marcus was really like a golden ticket and a key that unlocked the artist route that I'm going is songwriter.
Yeah.
So it's like the song has to exist before you start vibing it up.
Yeah. I mean, like you wrote out a narrative for yourself with beginning, middle, and end.
Yeah, without the songs really being clear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When structurally and in order for them to have shape and texture, they first need to have bones.
Exactly. So that was a huge growing pain.
Yeah.
Like that was massive because I was so intent on the final product. I was so like focused on when you listen to this, you got to feel this way or feel immersed that, I almost completely ignored what the songs are actually doing.
Yeah.
And that's been a huge learning curve for me.
Yeah.
That conversation with Jono and the collaboration with Marcus was the thing that really helped that along. So they were probably the big things.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is just learning how to sing better and stuff. Like I got lessons to try to be better at it.
Yeah.
And I guess part of that journey of not being fully formed out the gate kind of feeds into that. And I yeah, still practice, still get lessons. And I've got guitar lessons and stuff as well.
Yeah.
During the production of the record too. So yeah, just trying to get better at the bits of the craft that I sort of didn't pay much attention to when I was first starting out.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because I was still focused on like it needs to be a vibe.
Yep.
And the vibe is important, but I sort of needed to be able to best communicate that vibe, needed to have a bit of, structure or being able to actually do the thing.
Yeah.
Sounds so normal when you say it. But
yeah. I hear it though. Like, I think that's such a normal impulse to have the idea, and particularly when it's a big idea like this, to go, okay, cool, I can imagine the final thing.
Yeah.
But the steps in between are the bits that are, you're like, well, I'll figure it out along the way.
Yeah. And it's like, and what, I guess this is like, if there was a resolution to all of this, it is really that your final thing is literally the results of the steps you take.
Yes.
Which is, it sounds like it should be on a calendar somewhere. It probably is. But that's like, that's something that I'm probably going to take. One of the main things I'm going to take further into the next thing I do.
Yeah.
Is like the steps are there to achieve that final thing.
Yeah. How do you feel about yourself now?
Good. Cool. I feel cool and normal. Just like a completely normal, cool guy that's really interesting and makes good art and stuff. No, I feel okay. I feel fine. I think part of being aware that I'm on a lifetime journey.
Yep.
Is where the sort of comfort sits. Yeah. Is that I'm not going to stop doing stuff. And that, it has its humbling moments for sure. Where it's like I've definitely had stuff where it's like people have asked me like, would you do this and no one listened? And it's like, I sometimes do this and no one listens. And I sort of continue anyway. Yeah. Because it scratches some sort of itch. So yeah, I feel better in myself knowing that I've made something and it's out in the world. Yeah. Than to have not done it. And I would encourage anyone to do something good rather than nothing.
What are the next steps now that it's out in the world? What are the next things?
I'm doing a launch show, and I feel like we should plug the launch show.
Let's talk about that.
It's the 4th of April at the Chippo with Lee Sullivan and Perfect Daughters and SCUM, and it's very exciting. I'm very excited for that. When I'm playing with the band, there's like 9 people on stage, which is cool. And it's a lot to organize.
Yeah, imagine getting that many people together for a rehearsal, and you're not even a ska band.
No, not even a ska band. Maybe we should.
You know what?
Yeah,
horn section.
Not a bad idea. Yeah, it's also when we're all like over a certain age, we're all in our 30s, so it's just like finding time to get into a room.
Yeah.
It just doesn't really happen.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
So, very grateful for when it does come across and we're able to do it. So the show is cool. But then after that, I've written the next 2 records.
Great.
Yeah. So I've got a quieter sort of, I think a record that a lot of people have expected me to do for a lot of my career now is a
soft songwriter-y thing?
Direct address.
Yeah, okay.
An acoustic guitar and a mic and a couple of vocal layers or something. I'm doing that, which I'm very excited for.
Yep.
And then I've got a bit more of a louder thing, like a bit more of a bombastic thing happening after that.
Yeah.
And in between I've got, like kind of dance music-y, electronic stuff that I'm doing too. Fun. Yeah. I just, as I said, it's like a lifetime project. So I want to kind of make my palette as broad as I can make it.
Yeah.
And I think that's been another growth or a growing pain or whatever from the record, is just like everything's fine. You can just do the thing and it's good however it sounds or whatever the thing is. It's good to do. So that's been part of it too, just like not trying to feel like I'm trying to impress everybody and trying to compress what the idea is into one thing. Yeah. One little sandwich to take a bite of.
Yeah.
Because I end up making the most unfocused work when that is.
Yeah, you're trying to be too neat or too much of who you're Not in service of like what the expectations of other people are.
Yeah, exactly right. So I've been trying to just write heaps of different stuff, but I do like the idea of like a considered, focused idea. I like that too, and I think a way that I'm going to attempt to sort of do that is have these multiple albums and bodies of work that I can look back on when I'm 80 and be like, they definitely exist.
Did it.
Yeah.
Sick.
Jack.
Thank you.
Thank you, Max.
Freak.
Freak.